Today we're going to be talking about ways to win games in Commander, and I don't mean by playing cards to just say win the game on them. I mean by playing combos or synergies or strategies or whatever you want to call them that are either just going to put you in such an overwhelming position that you win from there, or just straight up kill your opponents. Let's get into it. Starting off, we got Zada Hedron Grinder. Zada reads, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets only Zada, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. I'm going to give you a few examples of some decks where this would shine in. Something like General Tazri. This is a deck that wants to be abusing ETB triggers and blink effects to get the most value out of allies entering the battlefield. And if you combine her with something like Zada and blink effects, you'll be able to maximize the ETB triggers you get off of General Tazri. You can even put Zada in decks like Feather the Redeemed, and when you target Zada, Feather's ability will trigger and you'll get your card back at your end step using Feather's ability. You can even slot Zada into a Naya tokens deck, and once you have a big board full of tokens, use Zada's ability with something like Defiant Strike to pump your board and draw a ton of cards. Now, what other ways are there to win that have been overlooked? Using SelfMill and Draw abilities to ping your opponents to death for one. Using cards like Sir Comrade the Grim and Gia's Blessing. So let's say you've got your Conrad the Grim on the battlefield. His ability makes it so that whenever a creature dies or is put in the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent, and you can pay 2 to put the top card of your library into your graveyard. So you use his ability, mill a few cards from the top, and then you hit your Gaia's Blessing. It goes into the graveyard and shuffles all those cards back into your library, and Sir Comrade the Grim's going to deal damage equal to the amount of creatures that leave your library. And if it's late in the game and you have 5, 10, 15 creatures in your graveyard, that's going to be huge. Gia's Blessing is even good in something like Slogurk the Overslime. Say you've got Slogurk on the battlefield and you cast something like Psychic Spiral on yourself, which lets you shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library and then put that many cards from the top of your library into your graveyard. If it's late enough in the game and your graveyard's really stacked, it's not uncommon for you to be able to mill half your library this way. And if you hit Gia's Blessing, you're going to be able to do all that over again, and Slogurk's still going to get those +1/+1 counters on him. Now I want to talk about dealing damage using card draw and something like Psychosis Crawler. Now this card lets you deal 1 damage to each opponent whenever you would draw a card. This would go great in something like Niv Mizzet or in a deck like Saheeli the Gifted. Crawler's an artifact, so it's going to help with Saheeli's uptick ability, and then you can use that uptick to cast 1 big draw X spell like Blue Sun Zenith or Finale of Revelation. And with Finale of Revelation, if X equals 10, you're going to draw 10 cards and untap up to 5 lands. And then you'll be able to use that untapped mana to draw even more cards. So even if you use Finale of Revelation for 10, you're going to be dealing 10 damage to each player. That's 12 mana to deal 30 damage. That's pretty good. Lastly, I wanted to talk about ways to burn them out. I mean dealing X damage to people with cards like Aurelia's Fury and Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Now, let's say you're playing Naya tokens and you get down your Phology Wayfarer. This is going to give all your multicolored spells Convoke. Spells like Aurelia's Fury. And if you have enough creatures on the battlefield, you're going to be able to tap those creatures to pay for Aurelia's cost and deal X damage divided as you choose among any number of players or creatures, players being the ideal target for this. And then because you used your creatures to pay for Aurelia's cost, you can use your open mana to cast something like Call of Glory or Battle Cry, which lets you untap all white creatures you control. And once you untap, you'll be able to swing in and finish off your opponents for good. And that's it, everybody. I hope these combos gave you some ideas and inspired you to put them in some of your decks. And if you're feeling generous, drop me a like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.